The French Revolution of 1789, the result of the prevailing discontent and discord sown by the teachings of Voltaire and Marat, left a trail of blood, death and hatred. The Catholic Church in France came under the heavy hand of the revolutionaries. Church property was confiscated. Nuns and priests were driven out of convents and monasteries. Religious teachings were banned. In Paris in 1792, 1,000 Catholics, inclusive of 215 priests, were massacred.
With the rise of Napoleon to power, the fortunes of France and the Catholic Church were expected to improve. Instead, Napoleon invaded Italy and took the 82-year-old Pope Pius VI prisoner and brought him to Valencia, where he died. Meanwhile, 35 of the exiled cardinals, faithful to Rome, elected a new pope as Pius VII in 1800. When the new pontiff refused to cooperate in Napoleon's military schemes, the French armies once again occupied the Papal States. In 1809, Pope Pius VII excommunicated the Emperor Napoleon. In retaliation, Napoleon took the Pope prisoner. In 1813, Pope Pius VII was forced to sign a concordat giving the Emperor Napoleon wider powers over the Catholic Church. It was during this reckless and irreligious period in the history of France and the Catholic Church that a number of inspired and deeply religious people rose above the ruins and chaos to hold the banner of Christ in the face of impossible odds. It was during this chaotic period that a knife grinder, Julian Eymard, and his 5-year-old daughter, Marianne, wended their way to the town of Lamia.
With friends and relatives were 4 other children which his first wife, now dead, had borne to him. Emerging from a state of abject poverty, he set up a small oil press and a cutlery shop. In course of time, he took as his second wife Madeleine Delors, a girl from his native village, and brought her to a rented house on the Rue du Bruy, La Mure. In this house, on 4th February 1811, a boy was born. 3 children previous to him having died in childhood. The next day, with his half-sister Marie-Anne, now 12 years old, as godmother, and his half-brother as godfather, the child was baptized in the little parish church and was called Peter Julian Eymard. As a babe in arms, Peter Julian would be frequently taken to church by his mother. His was a home where it was abundantly clear that Christ reigned. As the child grew up, he was sent to the local parish school. When he was 5 years old, Peter Julian one evening was missed from his house and was traced to the church by his sister.
What are you doing there behind the tabernacle?
Saying my prayers.
Why? On top of that ladder?
Oh, that's because I can hear Jesus better.
As soon as he was able to read, his mother placed the simple life stories of the saints in his hands. One day, he said to his sister,
Marianne, will you offer your Holy Communion for me?
Why?
That one day I may become a priest.
At no time in his life was he skillful at games, but he was never tired of associating as best he could with his playmates at Lamia in spite of his poor health. The following incident was to live with him all his life. In March 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte escaped from the island of Elba and passed through Lamia at the head of his army.
As Peter Julian grew older, he began to serve at daily Mass. To summon people to Mass, he would, as was the custom, go through the streets of Lamure 15 minutes before Mass, ringing a bell. In his spare time, he would help his father in his workshop. Throughout his young days, he showed great devotion to Jesus and his Blessed Mother.
Dearest Mother, help me to become a priest one day.
In preparation for his first Holy Communion, he was determined to make all the sacrifices he could. During Lent, he began to fast by giving away his food to the poor, and to beat down the pangs of hunger, he began walking around the church. On Passion Sunday, 1823, Peter Julian Eymard made his first Holy Communion.
Peter Julian was now 12 years old and had acquired sufficient knowledge to work as a tradesman. His father therefore took him out of school. But the young lad had his heart set on priesthood. With this object in view, he acquired a workable knowledge of Latin. One day,
Father, I would like to enter junior college.
And who do you think is going to pay for you? I cannot.
nothing daunted, the lad applied for a free scholarship and was admitted to the junior college in Lamia. A year went by in the junior college, but the underhand pressure of his father bore results.
I am sorry, Peter Julian. We cannot admit you for the second year.
Late one evening, Peter Julian overheard a conversation between his father and mother.
Peter Julian is now 17 years of age. I am thinking of getting him married. The girl's parents are very well to do.
The next morning,
Father, I overheard your conversation with Mother last night. I wish to make one thing clear. My decision to turn a priest is final, and nothing will alter it.
a few days later, a friend met him.
There is a priest in Grenoble who needs a servant. The offer for such a service was the teaching of Latin.
After getting his father's consent, he set out for Grenoble. On arrival, he found that he was an assistant to a chaplain in charge of an insane asylum. As time passed, some of the inmates began to take more and more notice of the young man. In sheer desperation, Peter Julian wrote home to his sister. At the end of the first quarter, the director of the institute,
My poor boy, your mother is dead.
Peter Julian, on hearing the sad news, went straight to the chapel of Our Lady.
Henceforth, O Mary, be my mother. I only ask one grace from you, that of being a priest one day.
He packed his things but reached Lamure too late for the funeral. This was in August 1828. From August 1828 to May 1829, he continued to work in his father's store.
In May 1829, he once again left home, spent a few days at the shrine of Notre Dame de Lou, and 2 weeks later entered the novitiate of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate at Marseilles. On 7th June 1829, he took the habit of an oblate novice, choosing as his patron Saint Aloysius Gonzaga. The strain of studies for the priesthood was too much for the frail young man. He developed severe headaches followed by lung trouble. 6 months had barely passed when the sick man was put on a stage coach and sent home. Though under the care of his sister, his condition deteriorated alarmingly. His one plea was,
O Lord, grant me the happiness of saying at least one Mass, only one, and I will accept my death.
God heard his prayer. The crisis passed. His recovery was speeded up by the attention of his sister Marianne and Annette Bernard, an adopted child. The happiness of his miraculous recovery was overcast by the death of his father on 3rd March 1831. The way was now clear. 2 years' convalescence had improved Peter Julian's health. In later September 1831, he left home for Grenoble. On reaching the city, he went straight to a church and knelt at the feet of the Blessed Virgin.
Mary, my mother, help me to become a priest.
With the help of Father Damasceno of the Oblates, he entered the seminary. Though still frail, he carried out his duties with sincerity.
I am working to fulfill the will of God, and I labor merely for His glory.
In the seminary, his piety was noticed by the other seminarians. On 20th July 1834, he received the sacrament of Holy Orders from Bishop de Bruyard. On 22nd July 1834, Father Peter Julian Eymard said his first Mass at the shrine of Our Lady of the Willows, 15 miles from Grenoble. On a request from his sister to the bishop, Father Eymard returned home to La Mure till such time as he was able to find an opening for work in the diocese.